they would have closed the case a long time ago.
Tom Hurndall was a peace activist and an aspiring photojournalist. 4 days after these pictures were taken, he was shot in the head by an Israeli soldier.
I'm calling you from Rafah. A British citizen called Tom Hurndall has just been shot in the head by the Israelis.
Mr. Hurndall survived but was left in a coma. He was brought back to Britain but died after 9 months in a persistent vegetative state. The defence blames poor medical care in Britain contributing to his death. His family visited the Gaza Strip as part of a long campaign for justice. The Israeli government rarely prosecutes troops accused of killing civilians. A verdict is expected on June the 26th.
Well, Tom Hurndall's father, Anthony, joins us now. Thanks for joining us. Clearly, the man accused in this is unhappy at proceedings. What about you and your family? Where do you now stand?
Well, we're concerned that the truth hasn't fully come out. Initially, there was a denial that there was any responsibility. They claimed that they were shooting a Palestinian gunman. So we're pleased that we've at least overturned that fabrication, and we now have a prosecution. The soldier concerned is saying that he is effectively a scapegoat, and it is our concern, obviously it's his concern, that he's been singled out because Palestinians are shot on a daily basis, civilians, and that there seems to be a policy that encourages that amongst the soldiers on the front line there. And he is basically saying that this happens every time, and he is only being investigated because he's now shot somebody who's at the centre of a diplomatic incident, effectively. Because
presumably you'd accept a lot of that as being the reality, the truth.
I think so. I think that from what we discovered, that Tom was just one of many civilians, but he's got all this publicity, he's got the trial that a Palestinian would not get, because we've had the support of the media here, we've carried out our own investigation, and we have the Foreign Office.
Do you think that forgive me interrupting, but do you think the right man is in the dock? I mean, are you satisfied that things have gone that far in the right way?
I believe that they should have gone further. I don't believe that it is just this man. I think that he is basically being sacrificed on the order of expediency, because the Israeli army would protect any soldier, usually, and soldiers are not prosecuted. This is happening on a daily basis in the case of Palestinians. It's only because we've made such an enormous fuss about this and put such pressure on them that they've had to concede that on this occasion they're going to have to prosecute, and this particular soldier has fallen prey to that decision.
And indeed, you have put that enormous amount of pressure, and I'm wondering if you think wider frame this is actually going to change in this particular case.
I think it has already. I think people are much more aware internationally, certainly in this country, they're much more aware of some of the issues to do with Palestinian sort of injustices and the oppression that is taking place there. I also think that in a small way there is a greater tendency for other soldiers to sort of break ranks, if you put it that way, and own up to what's happening and to call their own colleagues to account. There have been a number of prosecutions since this one.
Well, we should be watching that one carefully. Anthony Hurndall, thanks very much indeed for coming in. Now, when we come back, it is probably the most famous mathematical formula in the world. But how on earth does Einstein's theory of speed, light and movement look on the dance floor? The mathematical formula of them all. But how do you translate Einstein's theory of relativity into dance? Well, our arts correspondent Nicholas Glass reports on how the Rambert Dance Company has turned the behaviour of molecules into an art form, with a little help from the Institute of Physics.
The shock of white hair, the benign face, make him easily recognizable to most of us, even 50 years after his death. Rather fewer of us grasp Albert Einstein's theories. We know they are something to do with speed and light and movement, and as such they should lend themselves to contemporary dance.
I knew nothing about Einstein before this project came up, except that a friend of mine had his 2 7-year-old twins in the back seat, and they were behaving quite badly, and he said to them, "Say something intelligent." And there was a long pause, and one of them leaned over and said, "E equals mc squared."
Probably the most famous mathematical formula in the world, E for energy, m for mass, c for the speed of light. If you multiply any mass by the speed of light squared, the result will be its energy. Einstein's theories, published in a rush of papers a century ago, transformed the way we look at the cosmos. Mark Baldwin has absorbed the theories as best he can.
if you try and run across Leicester Square, you can't run in a straight line. You've got to kind of dodge all the other people. And if you took all those other people away and kept that action, that's called Brownian emotion. And so the Brownian emotion thing was obviously going to be a great big trigger for us because, you know, dance in a way, when you're making up dance, when you're trying to devise movement, it's as if you have some kind of choreographic molecule inside you.
To me, that dance is one art form that can be good at representing some ideas in physics. We specifically wanted from the start that it not be a physics lesson. I mean, it's a celebration with a smell of physics.
He also brought me a children's toy, and it looks like a round ball with kind of blunt knobbles on it, and you push the button and it jiggers like this. And he explained that that's a perfect example of how a molecule behaves in space.
Baldwin has set his piece to the popular music of the time by Franz Lehar, the Austrian-Hungarian composer best known for the operetta The Merry Widow. Einstein would have been familiar with this music as he worked away as a patents clerk in Bern in 1905. Baldwin did briefly consider using another, more radical contemporary composer, Arnold Schoenberg.
So just explain why not Schoenberg? Because, you know, given it, you're talking about revolutionary music and a revolution in physics, it would seem to naturally blend.
Well, because I suppose basically I'm quite cheap and nasty, and I want these ideas to appeal to a really big audience. And I knew that if we used the Schoenberg, and I love my difficult music, my contemporary art music, that's me, I love it. But in this case, we knew that we'd be touring the piece for a year, and we really wanted something that was going to be gorgeous, actually, a gorgeous celebration of these things.
Constant Speed was commissioned by the Institute of Physics. It's a short piece, about 25 minutes, and will be premiered by the Rambert Dance Company at Sadler's Wells on Tuesday.
Okay, you said at the beginning you knew nothing, or practically nothing, about Einstein at the beginning. What do you know now?
Heaps.
In 1905, Garbo was born. H.G. Wells wrote Kipps. Picasso completed his Blue period, and Albert Einstein introduced his astonishing theories. A century later, scientists still want us to remember it as a miracle year.
Are you watching up there, Albert? We're back noon and 7 tomorrow. Till then, that's Channel 4 News. Have a good evening.